There you go. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to send around the handout file one last time. You'll see it there in the chat if you need it. All right, so I've sent the handout file around one last time. We'll go ahead and get started. This is part 3 of closing the deal with rural landowners. This is the last part of this series. I believe this is the last training we're offering you guys until after Labor Day, but I'm not sure about that. I got my camera blocked off, or got my calendar blocked off by this slide deck. So what we're going to be focusing today is staying on top of the workload that goes with the field work. So we're going to explore what the top conservation mentors, our ag whisperers, how they stay on top of the workload and provide a really good customer service experience, and at the same time they keep upper management off their back, wondering if they're doing their job. Now we're going to start with a little bit of a warm-up exercise, as we usually do, and so we'll jump right into that. And this is page 16 and 17 in that handout. And what you see here on page 16 and on page 17, I've got 2 job descriptions. And so now let's imagine that it's your job, it's your role right now to hire somebody who's going to get out there and do a great job working with rural landowners to get the riparian buffers and the nutrient management plans and all of that in place. You need to hire somebody to do the work that we've been discussing over the past few sessions. And what I have here are 2 actual job descriptions. And all that I have done to them is edit them a little bit for length and remove the name of the hiring organization. So the job descriptions are generic, but these are actual, real job descriptions that I found that are relevant to the kind of work that we are discussing here in the course. So I got one on page 16, job description A. I've got one on page 17, that's job description B. And if you needed to hire a top-notch field conservationist, which vacancy announcement is going to better describe your ideal candidate? Which of these job vacancy announcements is describing the kind of person that you want to put in that role? And since we have now increased the number of people here, I am going to put you into 2 breakout groups for 5 minutes and let you work that through. So let's see here, breakout rooms. Assign 7 into 2. Here we go. You're going to go into the breakout rooms for 5 minutes to read over these job descriptions and tell me which one you think is going to get us the stronger candidate for working with landowners out in the field. Here we go. All right, welcome back. Get my windows in the right spot here. I would like to hear from breakout group room number 2. That is Heather, Jeremy, and Christopher. Which of these 2 job descriptions, Heather, Jeremy, and Christopher, do you think would be more successful at attracting the types of people that you would need to be successful in field operations with rural landowners? What did you guys settle on after looking these over?
We chose A.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, I don't mean to speak for everybody, but for WACF, we need somebody in a position like that, and we're not as sophisticated as B might be. I think after we got a little bit of traction with the producers in our area, we could look for somebody that could talk the talk a little bit more, but right now we just kind of need to get in the door.
Okay. And you feel that job A describes somebody who's going to be more what?
A bigger personality, maybe a little bit more easy to converse with and aware of the correct things to say. Or Jeremy, weigh in as.
Yeah, it just seemed like in job description A, that had a lot more of the soft skills built in. B seemed very technical, whereas I guess from what I've seen so far in this training, it seems like that personal side and being able to get your foot in the door is really important, and that seemed to come out in job description A a little more.
Terrific. Let's hear from breakout group number 1. That's Andrew, Jan, Matt, and Tom. Which of these 2 job descriptions did you feel was going to get you the kind of candidate who was going to be more successful?
We basically agreed with the other group that the first person was going to have better communication, relationship skills, and maybe that technical background could be helpful in some ways, but when it comes to really managing relationships and working with landowners, somebody who can communicate effectively seems to be the more valuable skill set in this situation.
Okay, so we are unanimous that this job description here, job description A, is stronger on some of the soft skills which we've been emphasizing over the past few hours. So here's the big reveal. Job description A is actually a job description from John Deere. It's a vacancy for a John Deere salesperson. Someone who sells tractors and mowers and combines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And job description B is from the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Districts. And I note that neither of the groups seemed to feel that this person was totally unsuitable, but really noticed that the sales role job description was really emphasizing the soft skills for working with the customers, while the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Districts vacancy was emphasizing the technical skills of the actual practices that they are promoting. Now, the point that I'm making with this is that field work for conservation organizations has a great deal in common with sales. So much in common with sales that both of these groups selected the sales job description for the conservation field work job. And many of us in the nonprofit and public sector are somewhat averse to the word sales. We don't like to think of what we're doing as selling because we're not getting any commissions on any of this, and none of the money goes, into our pockets directly. But there are a lot of parallels in bringing someone around to the idea of making a big decision, a big commitment, and putting some money on the table. And the more broadly is that many of the techniques that commercial salespeople use, of which there is an abundance of advice and training that is out there, are highly relevant to you. If the job description for a John Deere salesperson turns out to be relevant to all of you, think about all of the other tools and techniques and practices and approaches that commercial salespeople use are also relevant to you. And I'm going to be diving into that over the next time together, some of the things that they do, the commercial salespeople, that are relevant to what you do. And so let's talk about numbers, and we're going to talk a little bit about goals. And as my buddy Bobby Weiscarver likes to say, set your own goals. And what he means by that is for a lot of the conservation organizations, the NRCS and the conservation districts, there's going to be goals that get handed down from the state or from Washington or from the regional office. And usually those goals have to do with something like how many acres of crep or how many miles of buffer or that sort of thing. But there are other goals that come into play to reach the big goals that are set by the higher-ups. And so we're going to do a little crystal ball gazing here. And let me just make one. I'm going to skip that part and, well, let's try it. Let me copy this link for you. I'm going to send around a link here in the chat in just a second for everybody to fill out. All right, here it comes. A very short survey that I would like for you to fill out. When you've submitted the survey, please raise your hand.
Eric, I'm sorry, I don't know how to access the survey.
If you look in the chat, there's a link that you can click on.
Okay, sorry. Got it.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew is done, and he raised his hands. I'm seeing some hands starting to come up.
Eric, I didn't see a hand thing today, so I clicked the yes. I don't know where my little hand guy went.
I think as a co-host, you don't have that.
Okay, gotcha.
All the little wrinkles built into Zoom, some of which seem a little arbitrary. Why do I only have breakout rooms in meetings? We're going to wait for 2 more. For this particular exercise, we need everybody to do it. So Jan and Christopher, if you could, hope you are working on completing this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm an educator and I don't work with landowners directly. So trying to interpret it as far as presenting to schools, but I'm not sure I have much wisdom to add to the questionnaire itself.
Yeah, I did fill it out as well, but I also feel the same. It doesn't directly apply to my job role.
Okay, well, the point of the exercise will still be valid.
Yep, I did complete it. Yep.
Okay, well, then let's just take a look and see what everybody came up with. All right, so here are your responses coming in. Can everybody see the spreadsheet on the screen?
Yes.
Let me just get it so it's the ones we have from today. And here's how they work out. So the percent that would invite you to visit after an initial chat, a casual conversation at a soccer game, or you ran across them at a farm auction, or you saw them at a wedding, or who knows what, and you strike up a conversation. You said on average, 37% of them might invite you to visit their property. If they invite you to visit a property, the average of your responses is that 33% of them might say, yeah, send me a written proposal. Of those that receive a written proposal, y'all said that on average about 40% of them would close the deal. Now, these are just numbers that you made up, and these are averages of your various answers, which is fine. But if that works out that way, in order to close 2 deals, you'd have to have an initial chat with 48 landowners. You'd have to have 48 casual conversations here, there, and everywhere, at the workshop, at the church, at the farmer's market, at the livestock auction, at the soccer game, to end up with 2 deals closed. If 37% of the people you chat with invite you to the property, a third of the property owners that you visit ask for a written proposal, and 40% of those that get a written proposal actually end up closing. 48 conversations to lead to 2 deals. So what that really boils down to is there's only 2 ways to get more conservation practices in on the ground around the river. And one is to approach more landowners. So instead of 48, you talk to 90. Or you increase the rate at which you move landowners from step to step. And here's what that looks like. So now this is an average across many of the people who have participated in this course. Number of chats you have, number of sites that you visit, number of written proposals that you make, and the number of deals that you close. If you want this column here, the number of deals that you close and conservation practices that go into place, there's only 2 ways to make this number higher. And one is you talk to more landowners at the beginning, more of those conversations, and or you lose less of them as they move from step to step. It's never going to be 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%. That's just never going to happen. But if you can increase the percentage of the chats that you have that turn into a visit, if you can increase the number of visits that turn into a written proposal, if you can increase the number of proposals that turn into a deal, this number will go up. That's what we're going to be focusing on today, is some of the techniques that our top mentors, the ones whose expertise I assembled into this course, how do they increase those numbers? And it turns out that a big part of it is just staying on top of the workload, which is our third big takeaway that we got from the mentors that I mentioned at the very beginning of this course. The mentors, the people who guided us through this, are super proactive about managing their workload, and a lot of the advice they have for people who are new at this kind of work is advice on how to manage the workload. Now, we did a survey of our mentors, and there was a really interesting finding. So in our last session, last week, we talked about the importance of networking. This is like a rookie, brand new on the job, first day on the job. Our mentors say that networking in the community and developing relationships with landowners was the #2 priority. 3 to 5 years later, networking in the community and developing relationships with the landowners is still the #2 priority. And I bet 20 years, when someone's approaching retirement, networking in the community and developing relationships with landowners is still their #2. It's a constant thing. But now here's the consequence of that. The more a conservation field person is networking in the community and developing relationships with landowners, the workload grows. The more and more people you've had that initial chat with, the more and more people, the more and more farms that you have visited, the more and more privately owned forests that you might have visited, the more proposals that you have out there that some landowner is considering, the more and more deals you have in the pipeline, and you have to run the paperwork through all of the bureaucracy. You got to get through all the red tape on these things. The longer that a field person stays in the job doing this kind of conservation work, the more their workload grows. And boy, did we see that in this survey. So when someone is just starting on the job and they don't have a lot of landowner relationships that they're trying to manage, staying on top of the workload was pretty far down the list. But once someone has been on the job for 3 to 5 years and their network of contacts in the community is growing and growing, staying on top of that workload moved to be #1 on the list. Our mentors feel that one of the things that really clearly distinguishes a top field person from an average or a below average field person is how well, how diligently they manage their workload and stay on top of all the balls that they have in the air. Because the longer you're on the job, the more balls you have in the air. That's just how it goes. So So staying on top of that workload is one of the ways that the field staff increase the number of people who move from that initial conversation all the way through the site visit, on to the written proposal, and into the closed deal. Staying on top of it is how you can increase these percentages so that this bar here at the big end is larger than it would be otherwise. And so now this is one of our mentors. His name is Aaron Satchel, and he's from Michigan. He's with the MEEP program there in Michigan. And Aaron, of course, loves to talk about conservation. He'll talk about riparian buffers and cover crops and nutrient management all day. He loves these things. He's an expert in these things. But when we started talking about bringing landowners around to the idea of doing these things, he started to share what he really thinks. He spends a great deal of his time thinking about how he manages his workload, his appointment calendar, his to-do list, his meeting notes, internal meetings, quarterly reports. The mentors will talk your ear off about these things if you give them half a chance, because they think they're really important. And here's some of the kinds of things they tend to say. I have 2 calendars and a weekly to-do list. I look ahead to what is due and what is time sensitive, and I work out from these items. Outlook calendar helps me block off time to do my most important work, so I'm not perpetually distracted by email. I often put reminders for appointments in my personal calendar too. Establishing discipline is critical to keeping up on projects and their priorities given your time on the job. The mentors really believe that this aspect of the work is critical, and they are the mentors that others look up to because they have their attention and their diligence in this area. All right, so now let's go on to page 18. This is well, I'm going to put you in groups for this one too because we've had a couple more people join us. I'm going to mix up the groups since we've had a couple of more folks join us since then. I think I've done that right. And so now this is page 18 in the handouts, and here's what that exercise looks like. So these are sales tools. Salespeople use all these tools, and we ask the mentors to rate them. So on the left-hand column, I have a number of sales tools, and here they are in alphabetical order. Automatic task reminders starts with an A, so that's at the top of the list. And trying to keep it all in your head starts with P, so that's at the bottom of the list. But your exercise, for which I'm going to give you 5 minutes, is to put them in the order of preferred to least preferred. Which one of these tools did our mentors feel was the most important? That goes up at the top. Here's your hint. The one that they think is the least important goes down at the bottom, and that's trying to keep it all in your head. So I'm going to send you into the breakout rooms for 5 minutes to try and figure out the order that top conservation field staff would place these in. Is that clear? All right, here you go.
Eric.
Yes.
I got sent to a breakout room, and then all of a sudden my Zoom disappeared from my computer. But now it's showing I'm signed in twice. But can you throw me in a breakout room?
Yes. There you go. All right, it looks like everybody's back. So let me hear from breakout group number 1. That's Andrew, Heather, Matt, and Tom. What was the order that you thought these items would be in from top to bottom as recommended by our mentors?
I don't think we came up with a consensus, but I can tell you what I have.
That would be a good start.
And I guess I'll preface it with generally trying to put more electronic things towards higher preference and paper things towards lower preference. But I'll just read the numbers down the list if that makes sense. So I have 5, 1, 2, 3, 8, 7, 4, 6, 9, 10.
Okay. Great. Breakout group number 1. Oh, sorry. Breakout group number 2. Would you care to react to what Matt just said? The electronic stuff higher than the paper stuff?
We echoed kind of the same feeling that the electronic route's easy to keep multiple people in the loop, and you can most of the time have it available, whereas paper can get left behind or abandoned, trashed, whatever it is. So that we kind of, our list was very similar. With also, we voiced that having weekly, monthly meetings at a decent interval are important to keep everyone kind of on task and help remind you of things that are going on maybe in other people's priority that you weren't considering. So going down the line, we had 5, 1, 4, 2, 8, 7, 3, 4, 9, 10.
Okay, terrific. I'll walk through what the mentor said, and you can compare their answers to yours. And so, of course, trying to keep it all in your head is not a very good way of doing this. The longer you're on the job, the more the amount of information you're trying to keep in your head will grow. And second from the bottom is sticky notes and more sticky notes, because you're just going to end up like this. And I bet you all of you had sticky notes and more sticky notes down at the bottom. Sticky notes are fine. I certainly use them for certain things, but not for keeping track of information that I'm going to be managing over the course of years, which is how long some of these deals take to come to fruition sometimes. Calendars, lots of ways of doing calendars, and you are correct. The electronic calendar is their preference over the paper calendar. I am old enough to remember the old day runner. This was the BlackBerry of the 90s and the early 2000s, that leather thing that you used to carry around that had your appointments and had all kinds of information in there. You'd scribble in with it. Our mentors prefer the electronic calendar, and one of the things they like about it is if you're using a cloud calendar like Google Calendar, Outlook, all those, it will be on every device. Your calendar's in your pocket, it's on your computer at work, it's on your laptop at home, it's on your tablet, it's backed up to the cloud. You'll never lose it, and you'll have access to it everywhere you go. Our mentors felt that task lists are actually more important than the calendar. That's the way they rated them. And of course, they put the automatic task reminders and the electronic task list over the paper task list. This is one where I actually, personally, I need the paper task list because I just need that satisfaction of scratching something off when I'm done with it. That's just the kind of guy that I am. And again, the same benefit is there. If you have a paper task list, you can lose that paper task list. Whereas if you're using an electronic task list, it's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's on your desktop. Everywhere you need to go, there's where your tasks are. Now, the automatic task list, they put that at the top of their task keeping, and here's why. Because sometimes these tasks unfold over a very long period of time. So let's just imagine here's a conservation field staff person meeting with this landowner right here, and he says, I'll need to spend some time looking into this. That's responding to a suggestion from the conservation person. Would you please follow up with me in 3 months? 3 months. If you're using a paper task list to keep track of the need to get back in touch with this landowner, you're probably going to lose that sometime between this conversation and 3 months from now. If you program it 2.5 months from now, bing, it'll pop back up, and you can say, oh yeah, I got to get back in touch with this guy. Rural landowners, particularly if they're farmers, have their work is very different from season to season. This conservation field person made a suggestion. This landowner said, let's talk about this again after the harvest season. Right now, I got to get my apples to market. Once the apples are off to market, we can discuss this item again. So you got to remember to get back in touch with this guy weeks or months from now. And then finally this one, Dad's in Arizona for the winter. I'll talk to him about this when he comes back in April. So Junior's slowly and steadily taking over the farm. Dad is slowly but steadily moving into retirement, but still gets a say on some of these things. Almost half of the farms have 2 or more owners. 2/3 of the forests have 2 or more owners, and family members getting together to have meaty discussions is a big part of this dynamic, and sometimes that takes a while, and you got to remember to get back in touch with people over these long periods. Surprisingly high on the list from the perspective of many of our students is the weekly, monthly team meeting and a report on the pending deals up the chain of command. Now, one of you mentioned that when you were talking about that, the value of it. Many people, including myself in an earlier phase of my career, used to really regret those. I would feel that this was like an opportunity that I may get caught not doing my job rather than see it as an opportunity to do my job better. But as I grow older and more experienced, I've come to realize that these periodic check-ins, whether it's every week, every month, every 2 weeks, some interval that is regular, not so often that you can't do your job because you're always meeting, but not so infrequently that that you can't get it done. These are really important. Our mentors see these meetings as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to look at the big picture, ask questions from the more experienced colleagues, get input from other projects that may be relevant to one of the deals you're trying to close, et cetera, et cetera. It's an opportunity. And by doing it regularly, when the higher ups come back around every year or whenever saying, we need a report on all of your accomplishments, if you've been having regular meetings, your ability to send a report to the higher ups that shows that you're doing your job and makes the case for the budget increases that you're asking for, it's super helpful. And here's Seth Earl from USDA in Michigan. He says, when I discover a landowner has fallen through the cracks, I always follow up to apologize and try to rebuild the connection. And these weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever they are, meetings are an opportunity. Step back, take a big picture, look at the workload, see what's fallen through the cracks, and try and revive that languishing deal. And keeping track of the actual landowners and their contact information and where they are in the decision process is number one. Number one and number two is, how do you keep track of where you are with these people? At the top of the list, they use a database. The sales industry is full of databases that are designed to help conservation or designed to help salespeople keep track of the pending deals that they have going on. close behind that is using a custom designed spreadsheet to stay on top of all of these things. Now, the old way of keeping track of all of this was the Rolodex. I'm old enough to remember seeing Rolodexes on people's desks, but the gold standard now is some kind of a database. There are dozens and dozens of databases to choose from, and I'm not going to recommend a particular one for you. I couldn't possibly be qualified to do that, but Goldmine here is one of them. And the cloud-based sales databases have all the advantages of all of the other electronics. It's on your desktop at work, it's on your laptop at home, it's on your phone, it's on your tablet. All of your landowners are at your fingertips wherever you happen to be, and they're backed up to the cloud. If this Rolodex goes canoeing with Matt early in the morning and he tips his canoe and the Rolodex goes into the river, he's lost everything. If he tips his phone into the river on his canoe trip, he gets another phone and all of his contacts are right there. So now I have a video here that I'm going to show you that explains how these databases work. Now, this is a sales video for one particular brand of sales database, and I've never used it. I really don't know anything about it. All I know about this sales database is that they made a pretty good video that explains why you even want a sales database. So please watch the video and understand that they're making the case for a sales database. Which type of sales database is the most valuable, best fit for your organization? I have no idea. That is a whole nother project. That's a whole nother expert. But I am encouraging you strongly to take a look at using sales databases for these purposes. Now, I think I'm going to play this video, and it should stream through to your computer pretty well. Let's cross our fingers on that point.
More customers means higher profit, but at the same time, it becomes difficult to keep contact with each one individually. Every day, sales managers interact with a huge number of existing and potential clients. Usually, the information about them is stored in different files. Sometimes important things can be written even in old notebooks and on stickers. Whom to call back and when, what to suggest, what to talk about. You can easily get confused with old-fashioned client bases and lose a customer as a result. Besides, some sales managers consider databases their private property. So if a specialist gets sick, goes on vacation, or retires, his database can actually become unavailable for the rest of the company. Stop depending on the human factor. There is a solution, and it's called Customer Relationship Management, CRM. The CRM system is an automatic method of sales management. The system can effectively conduct both individual orders and big complex ones. No more papers, notes, and complicated files. Create a single database of contacts. Segment it according to different criteria and parameters. Consider the needs of potential customers based on their personal data. Complete the customer portrait with information from social networks. Communicate with them properly. CRM. We have a contact. Human memory is not perfect, but with the CRM system, any information about meetings, messages, contracts, and orders will always be on hand. Customers appreciate the attention. You won't forget to wish your partner a happy birthday or congratulate him with other holidays. Remember about the important things. Mobility is crucial to you? Work with CRM from your smartphone or tablet. In our CRM system, you can create your own social network to exchange operational information with colleagues. Effective planning is the key to success. Plan your working hours, schedule appointments. You can conduct business correspondence and receive calls directly in the CRM system. The analytics will show the employee efficiency. Track conversions in your sales funnel. Make predictions. Automate business processes of your company. Information about each transaction will be securely stored. You can return to any stage of cooperation with a customer whenever you want. Useful articles, instructions, templates, documents, presentations. All the necessary documents are stored in a single database. Work with the CRM system will be absolutely safe and secure. If desired, you can customize its interface according to your needs. Always in touch with the customer. It's priceless. More customers means higher profit, but at the same time, it becomes
Okay, was everybody able to watch that successfully? Just hit the yes button if that came through, okay? All right, a couple of you tell it did. Yay, Zoom. All right, so like I said, I am not trying to encourage you to use this particular database. The features and everything that they were describing, all the benefits of using one of these, using their database, apply to the whole category of databases. Customer Relation Management, CRM, Customer Relation Management or Contact Relationship Management, to keep track of all of these deals that are pending. Now, one of the killer features about CRM, one of the ones that I use all the time in my work, is the email storage capability. So let's just, here's an email I'm sending, hypothetical email to Shannon at the Pennsylvania Association of Conservation Districts. She's a good client. And you see here that I am BCCing Capsule CRM. So I'm sending an email to my customer, and I'm blind copying my database. I'm actually sending the email to my customer and to my database at the same time. And it says, hey, Shannon, have you made your mind up about that thing? That's obviously not a real email. But now here is Shannon's record in my database. And you can see that the email that I sent to her is stored in my database. Why do you want that? Well, if somebody else at my company needs to see my sales messages back and forth with Miss Wayinger here, it's right there in the database. So I can see it. My business development person can see it. If I had a boss, my boss can see it. So I'm creating a paper trail about these conversations that I'm having that is not just for me, it's also for the other part of the team that I'm working with. Super useful feature, comes in handy time and time and time again. Now, if selecting a database is maybe more than you are bargaining for, I have another option for you. I have a spreadsheet which is set up more or less like a real customer tracking spreadsheet. And here comes the link. I'm going to send it around to all of you in the chat. If you click on that link, this spreadsheet will open up and I'll walk you through it. Oop, I just sent that to Matt. Let's send that to everyone. And when you all click on that link, I'll see you popping up over here because Google is great. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got here. Pretty straightforward, a lot of it. First name, last name, name of the property, address, email, phone, really obvious. What are they interested in? I've got this set up as a pull down: BMP, conservation easement, cover crop, forest management plan, et cetera, et cetera. You could set something like that for whatever's relevant for you. The last time I was in touch with that landowner, what happened? The next time I should get in touch with that landowner, and what we're going to talk about. Over here, I have the status of the pending deals. Is it about to close, inquiry, site visit, need a proposal, need assistance, whatever. This is all hypothetical. These are not real people. These are not real farms. This is a list that I just made up for the training, but you get the idea. This is kind of the bare minimum of what you need to know. And the longer you're doing this kind of work, the more names you're going to have on this spreadsheet, and the trickier it will become to keep track of all of these people that you have dealt with and all of the deals that are pending and all of that. That is really a kind of the heart of staying on top of it, and the mentors are very diligent about it. So now, would you like to have this spreadsheet? Would you like to have it as a starting place for the something for you? Well, that's really easy. If you would, this spreadsheet is yours for the taking. Just go up here to the File menu, and you can download it as an Excel document. So you can take the spreadsheet that you're seeing here, you can download it, save it to your computer, and begin to customize it as necessary for your own work. Now, the great thing about a spreadsheet is you probably already know how to use one. It's pre-installed on your computer. A spreadsheet can do almost anything if you take enough time to program it a certain way. I like the sorting feature here. Let's just do a quick sort. So now I have the contacts sorted by what status they're in. If I have to report up the chain of command, how many deals are you working on and where are in the pipeline, I can sort like that. Maybe I'm going to head out into the field and I want to see who's in the same zip code that I'm going to, so I can maybe drop in on a couple of landowners, and boom, now I've got it's sorted by zip code, and I can visit everybody in the same zip code. If I need to know who's interested in which practices, I can sort the spreadsheet that way. I can sort by next contacts and the dates that are coming up. You know, it's not as powerful or flexible as a database, but a lot of the basic features can be programmed into the spreadsheet to keep track of all the deals. And if you think this spreadsheet is helpful, just go up to the File menu, click Download as XLX, and it's all yours to begin customizing, modifying, and using for your own purposes. Just to give you a little bit about 2020, I wanted the name of farms here, and I found using Google, there's a website, and it's called the Random Farm Name Generator. It just says, how many farm names do you need? And I said 50, and it spits out 50 names: Rosewood Farm, Robinwood Farm, End of the World Meadow, Southwind Farm, Willow Branch Orchard. I did not make those up. There's a website where it just makes this stuff up for you. That's 2020 for you. All right, so now we got to move people along to close some deals. We're going to deal with a couple of very important sales concepts. These are the things that salespeople in every industry tend to use to try and get people off a dime. Because what you will find is that the more you work in this kind of salesy context, no is not the worst answer. No answer is the worst answer. And what you find really going through your work is trying to get somebody to make a decision, yes or no, one way or the other, is really what you're after. You're going to never be 100% successful at getting landowners from that initial chat on down to that deal closed. But by using some of the techniques I'm about to mention, you can decrease the number of people that you lose here along the way. Now, you might remember this slide from last week. Am I indecisive? Let me ask my wife and I'll get back to you. Very often, a landowner who is excited about something that you have proposed, a riparian buffer, a nutrient management plan, who knows what, even if they're excited, there are still family members who have a stake in that property that have to be brought into the fold. And, you know, we sometimes don't see our family members that often. And when we do, there's a lot of things we need to discuss with them. And sometimes the conservation practice on the farmland is maybe not at the top of that list. And so now the cures for indecision, if you're a professional salespeople, are two: urgency and scarcity. If a landowner feels that they might miss out on a useful opportunity, it might get them off the dime to pick up the phone and call their brother, or to sit down with their wife after dinner and say, hey, honey, we've got to talk about this thing. Urgency and scarcity. If they feel they have all the time in the world to make up their mind, they will take all of the time in the world to make up their mind. If they only have a limited opportunity to make up their mind and they're interested, they'll get moving. So here's urgency in action. The power of urgency to get you off a dime and get moving. It's 20 days until Christmas. How much pressure do you feel to get your Christmas shopping done with 20 days until Christmas? None, not much. What are you going to do? You're going to procrastinate. There might be one or two of you on the line who 20 days before Christmas have got it all sewed up, but most of you on this call might still be like, I'll get to that a little later. But now we got 8 days until Christmas. Now you're feeling the pressure rise. 3 days until Christmas. Now you're really under the pressure to get moving. It is urgent that you get ready, because on Christmas Day is arriving on the 25th, come hell or high water, there is no alternative. That's urgency. And rural landowners are used to urgency types of appeals. This is Tractor Supply. This is Polaris. These are well-known brands in rural America. They've got their Thanksgiving sale. How does the Thanksgiving sale get people in the door at Tractor Supply? Partly it's about some attractive discounts. That's part of the thing. But also it's about dates. This sale runs from the 23rd to the 27th. If you're interested in any of these deals, you've got a limited amount of time, and it's that limited amount of time that is what really drives a sale and what really gets people in the door. Here we go. For a limited time, you get a big discount on one of these gizmos here. That's urgency in action. You have a limited amount of time. Now, the other option is scarcity. You have a limited amount of opportunity. And I'm going to use an example from a well-known brand, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has a marketing shtick. It's one of their signature marketing efforts. When Chick-fil-A opens a new restaurant, they offer the first 100 customers at that new restaurant one free sandwich per week for a year. One free sandwich per week for 1 year works out to about $150 value. So they're offering the first 100 customers get a $150 prize. What do you think happens? People camp out. They camp out. Look at this. Here we have people, they got their tent set up. They are camping in the rain. They are camping in a parking lot in the rain to get there, one of the first 100 customers at this Chick-fil-A. Now, if I went to you, any one of you said, hey, I got a deal for you. If you'll sleep in a tent in a parking lot in the rain, I'll pay you $150. Many of you would be like, no way, $150? You got to pay me a lot more than that to sleep in a parking lot in the rain. But if it starts to feel like you're going to win something and it takes on this element of a competition, here they are, camping out in the rain in a parking lot to get some free chicken sandwiches. That's scarcity. There's only 100 to go around. You better get that one. And we see that in rural America too. So this is an ad from Purina. They're using the exact same ploy. Be one of the first 100 people to bring us an empty bag of other guys' animal feed, and we'll give you a big discount on our animal feed. So there's only 100 to go around. This is a sales event for a competitor of John Deere, and the magic phrase here, which I pulled out because it's pretty small on that, is while supplies last. While supplies last is a scarcity message. We've got a certain number of Yeti cups that you can take home if you stop by while supplies last. They create a reason for you to get in there early rather than to get in there late. Because the true enemy of closing a deal isn't the word no, it's no answer. Procrastination is what you're really trying to deal with in many of these sales situations. And so now here's Steve Schaub. He says, if you want to put a little pressure on somebody to make up their mind without you being the bad guy, you can let NRCS be the bad guy because their programs have 2 sign-up deadlines per year. And it's great. It is well documented that programs that have sign-up deadlines, enrollment periods, actually get more participation than programs that you can sign up for at any time. If you can sign up for something at any time, you'll always have something else that you need to do first. That's why health insurance has these windows. You got to move in this window because that increases the likelihood that you're actually going to do it. If it's open-ended, you can sign up at any time. Any time is good enough. There will be procrastination. So now I'm going to show you some slides. And what you're going to see is a conversation that's occurring between some kind of a conservation field person and a landowner. And the conservation field person is trying to get some urgency or some scarcity into that conversation to nudge the landowner gently to make up their mind. And so I'm going to just kind of work through the list here. So Matt, the first one will be for you, and you can either tell me verbally or in the chat, whichever you prefer. Is this an urgency ploy or a scarcity ploy? And so now the conservation field person sent an email to this gentleman right here and wrote, if we can sign the easement contract by October 1st, you can claim the tax deduction on your taxes this year. Matt, is that an urgency or a scarcity message?
Urgency, for sure.
Urgency. All right. So the next one is for you, Andrew. Is this an urgency or a scarcity message, Andrew?
Scarcity.
Scarcity, right. There are 10 slots. First come, first served. Scarcity. I got 10. I only got 10. Heather.
Well, I guess that would be an urgency one.
Yep, that's an urgency. It's about a deadline, not about an availability. The next one is for Jan.
Scarcity.
Scarcity, limited supply. Jeremy, what's this one?
Urgency.
Urgency, great. Let's see here. Let's go with Christopher. You with us, Christopher? Let's try Jeremy.
Yep, that's urgency again.
Urgency again, all right. And Tom.
Scarcity.
Scarcity and urgency. Actually, this was a double whammy. I got money this year. Next year, I'm not so sure. You got to come for it this year because next year, I'm not so sure. That is Double whammy. All right, so conversation tips. Remember these guys? In the first one of these sessions, you picked out a landowner that you were going to be working with. It's time for you to dust those cobwebs off your memory and remember who that was and what you wanted to do with them. So you might take a quick look back at your handout if you've been doing that. So in that conversation, the first thing is, if they're asking questions and they are raising objections, that is good. Questions and objections are good. It means that they are seriously considering what you are suggesting. I'm going to encourage you in this context to politely assume that no means not yet, and to keep coming back gently, periodically, patiently, hoping to turn that no into a yes. And to always try and nail down the next time that you are going to speak and meet. Never leave it up to the landowner to get back to you if you possibly can. You want to get at least some kind of a verbal indication, sure, 2 weeks from now, or a month from now, or 3 months from now, after the harvest season, when dad comes back from Arizona from the winter. However, so here's your exercise, and on page 19, I've got some go-to phrases. These are some phrases that I would encourage you to rehearse and have them on the tip of your tongue at all times. Assuming we are interested in what we are discussing, here's the next step. I don't know the answer to that offhand, but I'll look into it. Can we schedule a time for me to get back to you? Are we still on track to meet at 3:30 to talk about this thing? These are super common phrases that a salesperson would use to try and hold on to the initiative of setting the agenda. And so now you're going to have a phone conversation. I'm going to let you write the script down. This is an individual exercise, not a group exercise. I'm going to give you 5 minutes for it. You're trying to secure a site visit with your landowner. And here's what the landowner says, and maybe drawing from these as inspiration, how would you respond? Then the landowner says this, maybe drawing on this, how would you respond? Write your end of the conversation with the landowner, always trying to end up with a commitment from the landowner to move on to the next step, or to give you a time period to move on to the next step. This is an individual exercise. I'm not going to put you in the breakout rooms. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. All right, let's see how y'all did. So I want to have this conversation. I'm just going to pick a name at random. Let's see here. Tom, you ready to work with me on this?
Yep.
All righty. So which landowner am I, Tom?
David.
I'm David. Okay, and what are you trying to get me to do?
Not sell all your land to a developer, maybe put it into a tree program, for example.
Okay, so you're trying to get me to maybe harvest some trees in a responsible manner to make some money for my to help my relatives get through college rather than sell the land outright.
Correct.
Okay, and you want to get out there and visit my forest so you could maybe walk me through some of the options and help me see that that might be what I'm looking for. So we've been talking for a while, and I'm like, you know, it's a pretty complicated situation. It's kind of hard for me to explain the whole thing, you know, with the whole family and everything. I'm not sure if you can help me out, Tom.
Well, I understand. I understand that. Since you have multiple parcels of property, maybe we could just talk about one in particular that you find most desirable to see what programs we have. So which one would that, which property would that be?
So, well, gosh, I'm not even sure if I would know, but it seems like we have the biggest patch of woods on the tract that I inherited from my grandfather a few years ago, and it's down along Stony Bottom Creek. It's pretty big, and it's got a lot of trees on it.
Well, that's a great spot to start to get out there and maybe go look around, and we can explain in person what type of programs and harvest and maybe some other conservation programs that can help with the income to pay for college as well.
Well, I suppose that might be interesting, but before we let anybody come out on to see the woods, I got to talk to my wife about that.
Well, I fully understand that. Maybe we could meet out there, all of us together, and we could go for a walk and talk about it all together.
Okay, well, I guess I'd be willing to show you the place sometime. I need a little bit of time. I'll talk to my wife and get her help her get comfortable with the idea.
All right. Well, great. Not sure when you're free, but maybe in 2 weeks, I could touch back with you and get a time pinned down to get out there.
Okay, sure. 2 weeks. I guess that's Friday the 14th. And I'll put it on my calendar. I'll plan on seeing you then, unless I just can't get my wife around, in which case I'll just have to let you know.
Sounds good.
All right. Terrific. Well done, Tom. So I have 3 of those, but we don't possibly have any time to do all 3. So the last big thing we're going to do here is actually voicemail tips. And I know this sounds like a really crazy sort of micro recommendation. But here's the reality of the work that you do. 97% of business calls go to voicemail. Almost always you place a call to somebody and it goes to voicemail. That's just the reality of it. And many of these landowners are older and would still prefer to chat than do things email, text, however. And we did a survey as part of this, as you know. One of the things we did to pick the brains of these conservators is we did a survey, and I got some input here from Bruce Washburn with the Department of Environmental Quality. And so now the question that I asked, and this is supposed to be the big kind of the softball closer, and I asked the question, if you could go back in time and talk to your young self when you were just starting out, what advice would you give your young self when you were just starting out? And Bruce Washburn here said that he would go back in time and tell his young self how to leave a voicemail. He would tell his young self how to leave a voicemail. And that caught my attention. Like, you can go back in time and you can tell your young self anything. What a great opportunity. And when you go back in time, what do you tell yourself? You tell yourself how to leave a voicemail? It must be really important. And so he said, you know, when leaving a voicemail, talk slowly. Repeat your phone number. If they can't understand you, hear you, or get your number, they can't call you back. That is his advice to his young self after 25 years doing this kind of work. So I took that as an invitation to go look at what professional salespeople, the advice that they give their young people in the ranks about leaving voicemails. And here's the advice that I have distilled from many sources that are sales oriented. And the first and the most important is when you pick up the phone and call, expect to get a voicemail and don't hang up without leaving one. Try to keep your voicemail to about 30 seconds. Keep it short. Use your landowner's name at least once and maybe even twice. People really love to hear their own name. Give context if you can by referring to your last contact. Maybe offer an example. Give them a nudge, urgency or scarcity, and leave your phone number twice. Now, expect to leave a voicemail when you call and don't hang up without leaving one. Many times nowadays, if you call someone, it's going to a cell phone and they're going to see that you called. And if you call again and again and again and again and again and you never leave a voicemail, that's a little creepy. So leave a voicemail because they're going to see that you called. They're also going to see on their cell phone how long your voicemail is. If your voicemail is short, 25 seconds, they're a lot more likely to listen to it than if it's long, a minute and a half. That's just the way it works. Use your prospect's name at least once and preferably twice. So here he is listening to the voicemail. Hi, David, blah, 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 blah. Looking forward to chatting with you soon, David. Just drop the name in twice. Some context by referring to your last contact. Here's an example of that. He's listening to the voicemail and it says, hi, David, it's John. Last we spoke, you asked me to get in touch with you in the summer so we can pick up the conversation about the filter strips. John is reminding David that David asked John to call now. It's not a cold call, it's a call that David asked for. If you can, here's an example. He's listening to the voicemail. Since we last spoke, we helped your neighbors downstream put one in. She said it would be okay if I brought you by to take a look at the riparian buffer. She said it would be okay if I brought you by to take a look at the alternate watering station. She said it would be okay if I brought you by to take a look at the cover crops in her field. Give them a gentle nudge, urgency or scarcity. This voicemail says, I've got cost share money that I can offer you through the end of the fiscal year on September 1. I'm not sure about next year. Double nudge. Deadline of the fiscal year, scarcity that next year there might not be money. Call me back at your convenience at 987-654-3210. I'll say that again, 987-654-3210. All right, so now this is your final exercise. This is an individual exercise. I'll give you 4 minutes to do it. Write a voicemail script for your prospect. Is it David? Is it Jorge? Is it Patricia? Who is you trying to sell? Leave them a voicemail. Write the script down. I'll hear from a couple of you, and then we'll wrap it up. I'll give you 4 minutes. Okay, let's hear a couple of voicemails. So, Jan, call me up and leave me a voicemail.
Okay, well, my clients tend to be school teachers. So I am trying to reach a school teacher about setting up field trip series. So, hello, Andrew. This is Janet with Branch County Soil and Water. I'm calling you about our usual field trip series, especially to find out what are your needs for the coming school year, given possible social distancing guidelines at your school. We can make multiple visits possible for smaller groups, but that would fill up our calendar. So please give me a call at phone number. Let me repeat that phone number.
Well done, Jan. Let me hear from Ross. Leave me a voicemail, Ross.
So I'm following up with, I believe it was David with the landowner that we were originally linked to. Hi, David. This is Ross St. Clair with Cardno. I was following up on our conversation a few weeks back about finding opportunities for funding of mitigation sites on your property. I've got a couple great opportunities that will have funding available through late fall of 2020. I wanted to discuss with you and set up a time to come out to your property and view those sites themselves. If you could, please give me a phone call back at phone number. Again, that phone number is number.
Great. Let's get one more in there. Let me hear from Matt.
All right, so I was talking to Richard, hoping to get some kind of conservation practices in place with the incentive of a ditch tax thing. So, hey, Richard, it's Matt from the St. Joe River Basin Commission. Last time we spoke, you were thinking about putting a filter strip along the ditch. Hey, I wanted to let you know that if you get it installed by the end of the year, you can get I could probably get you a discount in your ditch tax. Not sure if the county will offer something like this again, so it's a really good time to do it. I might even be able to help you get some cost share to cover the installation costs. Call me back if you're interested. That's Matt with the River Basin Commission at number again.
Great, Matt. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's bring this on home. So here was the question that led to that voicemail exercise. Is there any advice that you received earlier in your career that has been helpful to you over the years? If so, what was actually not the exact question. And these answers are rather heartening. So Aaron Satchel says, love what you do and the people that you work with, and you're most of the way there. Stick around long enough to enjoy working in the conservation field. It gets more fun every year. Well, maybe not 2020, but 2021 is going to be awesome, I promise. Care about the ag community, and they will care about you. That's going to bring us to the end of our session. Thank you all for the time that you've made. 3 1 hour and 45-minute sessions over the course of 3 weeks in the summer is a pretty big commitment. I hope you enjoyed it and get something out of it. If you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to share with the group, now's the time. I'm going to open the floor. Well, then with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Matt, I'll send you the recording as soon as I have it. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.